Hey guys, what is up? It is Flag44 here. Welcome to a new series I am doing called Mariners Monologues. It is very similar to Hawks Ramblings, the videos I did about the Seahawks, but it is about the Mariners. So I really had a good time doing the videos about the Seahawks in that season, and that was awesome. And I started in the preseason, and they won a Super Bowl, so maybe I'll start this one during spring training, and the Mariners won a World Series, so who knows. So I'm just going to be talking about the my history following the Mariners, my mindset, and then go through some projected roster and what I think of it and how I think it could be successful. So I started following the Mariners, I think it was like 2009, 2008. I'd always kind of been interested, like sort of interested in the Mariners, like, maybe go to a Mariners game, but not really following. I remember it was a spring break. It was the year Griffey came back, so whatever year that was. And I think it was spring break, and I turned the TV on. I saw this Mariners game. I'm like, oh, this is great. This will occupy my spring break. I'll be able to watch the Mariners. It's like, whoa, this is another sport to follow. They had the pink bats and everything. I remember it was in Minnesota. That's when I remember I started following the Mariners, and unfortunately, it hasn't been very successful. But I've stuck with it. I stay interested. I stay extremely interested up until July, and then probably the first part of July, and then usually by August I'm done. I don't care at all at that point. Like, I didn't even know James Paxton pitched at all for the Mariners last year, but apparently he did. But I get really excited, and this is a year where it's easier to get excited because of what they've done this offseason. And it seems like every year, maybe they have an outside shot at the wild card, and this year it seems like, okay, if everything goes according to plan, everything goes perfectly, they could actually do some damage because they've got some legit players. So that's kind of where I'm at. I'm just gonna be doing these videos just like my Hawks Ramblings videos, where I just talk about whatever, talk about what I'm thinking. I don't know when I'm gonna pace them out. Probably just whenever it's, since Mariners games happen pretty much every day, I'm not gonna be able to do one every day. And I didn't really do one every Seahawks game either, so just whenever I feel like doing a video, I guess, which could mean there's a lot, could mean there's very few. Probably very few. Okay, so moving on, I just searched like Mariners lineup, and there was like some weird fantasy projecting lineup. It did a pretty good job, so I went ahead and started using it. So right now the Mariners are talking to Chris Capuano and talking to Nelson Cruz and talking to Kendrys Morales, but they haven't signed anyone. It looks like they're probably gonna get one of the three, hopefully two of the three, if they get Capuano. I don't know how to say his name, Capuano. This left-hander, he should be pretty decent. And Nelson Cruz, I think that'd be pretty good. A lot of people don't want them to sign Nelson Cruz, but if they can sign Nelson Cruz to a cheap deal, relatively cheap, I think he could be pretty solid. And Cano wants him. So actually, this projected roster has Nelson Cruz in the lineup, so we're just going to go with that for the sake of simplicity. But I'll go through the whole thing. So I set this up a while ago, so obviously the roster changed a bit, but pretty much nothing's changed. Okay, so starting off, Dustin Ackley, leadoff, as an outfielder. Obviously lots of potential there. Was supposed to be amazing, hasn't really panned out yet, but who knows? Baseball is really weird. It could pay off, something could happen. I think that's pretty solid. Next, we have Kyle Seager in the 2 spot. Kyle Seager, probably the Mariners' best hitter overall before Cano. Really good, really solid, provides a little, if they don't want to pitch to Cano, they're going to have to pitch to Kyle Seager, and Kyle Seager is pretty good. Next, we have Cano in the 3 hole, so pretty valuable there, can do a lot of damage, kind of brings the whole lineup together. Corey Hart in the DH role, and Corey Hart's a pretty talented player. Thing is, if he's going to be able to stay healthy, hopefully he will be. Hopefully he can be pretty good. And then Nelson Cruz around him. Nelson Cruz, not great, but a decent bat. I don't know why people are so against Nelson Cruz. I mean, he's better than, he's not great, and he's kind of on the decline maybe, and he's had the, PED stuff, but, he's better than a lot of Mariners hitters in the past, so it could be a lot worse. So just looking at that, the middle of the lineup here from Seager to Cruz, I mean, that's pretty decent. Like, you got some legit players, and especially considering their bench, which we'll get into later, they've got some nice pieces. And then next is Justin Smoak, who had a pretty good year last year, relatively. Didn't really hit for much power, but hit for a nice average, and could be decent. They've got Logan Morrison in the bench, so they could fill him in there. That should be, at least they have other options. They're not really tied to this. Next we have Michael Saunders, who, if I remember right, really struggled last year, but had shown signs of success, so maybe he turns it back on again. baseball's so weird in the way this stuff works. It's like it's so like finesse and just so strange. So hopefully he can be good, but he's a really good outfielder in my opinion. Good speed and pretty good seven spot. And then Mike Zunino as a catcher, kind of just the young guy. Let him do his thing. And then Brad Miller as the shortstop in the 9-hole. Pretty good spot for Brad Miller because he doesn't have to do anything. He just can just sit back in the 9-hole and do his thing. No pressure for him. I'd probably at some point we might see Miller and Ackley switch. I think that's how it was at the last part of the season last year, or last part of the season relatively, last part when I was watching. And I think that could be pretty good because Brad Miller seems like he'll be better than Ackley at this point. So we'll see how that goes. Next, we're going to move on to the possible starters. We've got Felix Hernandez, obviously, number 1. Sashi Iwakuma, number 2. He has his hand thing, but I think he's going to get over that pretty quickly. Might miss a couple starts, but it shouldn't be that big of a deal, especially if they have some insurance guys. Maybe it'll kind of extend the tryout for the extra spot or the 5th spot sort of thing. And then Erasmo Ramirez as the number 3. James Paxton as number 4, Taijuan Walker as number 5, and Brendan Maurer as number 6. I'd probably do this Hernandez, Iwakuma, Walker, Ramirez, Paxton, or Walker, Paxton, or Ramirez. Ramirez is the guy that I really like. Erasmo Ramirez, I think he deserves more of a chance because he's done really well and they've given him an option, but he's just been kind of like they don't really want to do much with him for whatever reason in the past. I remember it was like Erasmo Ramirez would come up and they would talk about, how are the minor leagues doing? And like this guy in the Venezuelan league was just destroying. No one thought that he'd be able to translate, but he's been good. And with the, when he's had a chance, he's had some weird injury stuff, but I think he could be pretty solid and do a good job for him. So I like his potential there. James Paxton and Taijuan Walker, obviously the 2 young guys. I like their chances. I really like Taijuan Walker, and I think James Paxton could be good if he gets things figured out. And so the good part about this lineup, or this rotation, is that if things go the way they could go, you've got a really good lineup. And if they throw, the other guy to throw in here is Scott Baker, who could be that replacement for Ramirez or replacement for Paxton. Assuming Taijuan Walker is going to make the team. He's kind of like that veteran guy that will probably be in there when Iwakuma's out, and then maybe signing Capuano, or they're talking to Ervin Santana, which the thing with Ubaldo Jimenez and Ervin Santana is that they're just really weird pitchers and they shouldn't be getting paid that much money because they're not all that great. Jimenez was really good for a while, then got awful, then got decent again. Ervin Santana was never very good, in my opinion. Had a good year, and now he's trading like he's a good pitcher, but I do not like Ervin Santana. I would rather stay away. I mean, obviously, if you could get him for like no money, he'd be solid, but he's going to command way more money than he should, in my opinion. I think you just try to stay away. I'd rather go like a Nelson Cruz even, which might seem crazy, but Ervin Santana just leaves a bad taste in my mouth. But watching him, I think he was on the Angels. He was just not good. But I think they've got some, people say they have no depth there, and I mean, they don't really have any legit depth, so to speak, but they do have some potential depth. If things pan out, they could have, a really solid rotation. So, I don't know. Obviously, I'm making it look better than it probably is, but that's what you kind of have to do if you're a Mariners fan to get excited. So that looks pretty nice. Okay, and then closers and the setup guys. Fernando Rodney, who they signed, I think he could be good. The Mariners have had actually pretty good closers in the past, like Tom Wilhelmsen. Danny Farquhar did a good job. I mean, they've all kind of collapsed, or not really been ideal. But I think Fernando Rodney is a nice piece and is just another solid guy to not really build around, but just to have another piece in there that other people can kind of hang on to. If you've got a solid guy in Fernando Rodney who does a good job, can go in there and get the save, everything else can kind of I don't know, just be supported by him, just like Cano kind of brings the whole lineup together. Fernando Rodney could bring the bullpen together. And then other relievers, Tom Wilhelmsen obviously was really good, then got weirdly bad. Yoervis Medina, pretty good. Stephen Pryor, pretty good. Danny Holtzen. I don't know why Danny Holtzen is there. Oh, I guess this is just other. Okay. And obviously Scott Baker. But Danny Holtzen looks like he's going to be out for the year. Kind of lost on him. Kind of sucks that Ackley and Holtzen just kind of bombed. I don't know how for, Jack Sorensic, who prides himself on the draft. And it's not like he can really be blamed for this, but it's like, come on, you got to have some hits there early on. Like, this is where you get your young superstars, and the Mariners can't seem to do that. Okay, and then looking at the bench guys, you've got Logan Morrison, who could be playing some first base, could be playing some outfield, could be playing some DH. I like what he has to offer. He's another young guy that, if he gets it figured out, could be good. I mean, the Mariners are filled with prospects that, like, at one time were regarded as like top prospects. So you think like, oh, they have that sort of potential. So maybe that'll work out. Franklin Gutierrez is done, so he's not going to be on there. Willie Bloomquist is that utility guy, pretty good utility guy, but I mean, doesn't really do much other than that. John Buck as the backup catcher, pretty solid. Carlos Truenfell, and I don't know what he's going to be doing. He's kind of running out of time on his stuff once, he was regarded as like one of the best prospects for the Mariners for a while. Abraham Almonte could be interesting as that fourth outfielder sort of guy, depending on if they get a guy like Cruz signed or what happens, or inevitably someone will get hurt and then he could come up and could be an interesting option. Jesus Montero, kind of done with him. Everyone's kind of written him off, but he was pretty good his first year with the Mariners. I mean, he hit like 260 something, and I mean, not crazy, but kind of good enough to hang around. And so I don't know, they've got a ton of these first baseman DH type guys that I don't know what they're going to do with them. So we could see a potential trade. It's just kind of like, I don't know, it doesn't seem like the Mariners have many holes. It's just that their players aren't that great. Like their players at this point are like good enough, but they don't have anything crazy good. Like Nick Franklin, worth playing, and so it's like, oh wow, he doesn't really have a spot. That's usually a sign of a team being pretty good, but it's just not like, I don't know, it's like, okay, Nick Franklin, second baseman, obviously Robinson Cano way better. You could try to play Nick Franklin at shortstop, but Brad Miller is probably as good as a hitter and just a better defender, and so that's not really Nick Franklin's natural position. So it's like, okay, you got these trade chips, you got Justin Smoak, because you could throw Logan Morrison in there, like, what do you trade him for? There was the idea, okay, maybe try to trade for a David Price, which would be great. But I don't know, it's like, it's really weird. Like, I don't know, it's like, it seems like they're pretty good. It's just that they're either in like a good position or they're in like the worst position possible, where they're just decent, but there's no real way to like fix them, or whatever. I don't know. Should be interesting, at least for a bit. I think they've got some potential, like I said before. I'm hoping that they do something. I'm hoping that they just stay in it. Like, if they could just stay in it long enough to keep things interesting. Obviously, Cano will keep things interesting for a month. And then Taijuan Walker and James Paxton will keep things interesting. At least it doesn't look like the Mariners have like a really bad, starter. Like, sometimes guys would be starting and it would just be like, oh, this guy, why don't we just write this game off? This is stupid. I mean, Hernandez, Iwakuma, Paxton, Walker, all exciting. At least, even if they're not good, they're exciting, sort of thing. And then Ramirez is a solid guy. They don't have like a freaking Aaron Harang, the orangutan. Jeez, that was just awful. But inevitably something will go wrong, and we'll see about who they can step up. So the reasons for success would be the young guys stepping out and stepping up, and just coming up and hitting their potential. Like Justin Smoak, just at age 27 or whatever he is, just like realizes all he can do. Dustin Ackley has a revival. Kyle Seager doesn't relapse like we've seen so many players do. Mike Zunino steps up to where he could be, and everything. That would be great. And then they limit injuries. I mean, they don't have crazy depth, so if they could just stay healthy, that'd be good. I mean, they do have some depth, like Nick Franklin, Jesus Montero, Logan Morrison. I mean, some at one point decent guys. And then Scott Baker maybe steps up and is able to make the team and turns out to be pretty good, because I think he's been hurt. And I think when he was playing, he was pretty good, so maybe he can get back. And then Nick Franklin and Justin Smoak get traded because they have these extra pieces, but the question is to who. So, and then the reasons for failure is that they're the Mariners and they always seem to fail. Even when they, had that crazy 2001 team, or had like 116 wins or whatever, I mean, they still figured out a way to fail. So it's kind of like, how do you, I mean, even the Seahawks at least had some success previously, and you can kind of see it coming. Mariners look like they're still a ways from that, but 2 wild card spots, you never know. As long as they can stay, if they stay just moderately close, like, I'll be happy as long as they have like a chance. Like, usually just look at the standing. It's like, okay, just stay in there, stay within striking distance, and then you never know what happens once things get down the wire. Same things as all the other years that would cause failure. Cano sucks and brings the team down. That would absolutely be horrible. Imagine if Cano just like drops the ball and all of a sudden he is hitting like 250 or something like that, which isn't the worst thing in the world, but for a guy you're paying $240 million, it would just be a disaster. You know, it doesn't look like this is going to happen, but just say it happens. I mean, you can just write the Mariners off. That's kind of the scary part. Like if Cano just can't do anything, I mean, just give up at that point. And then lots of injuries and they can't recover. They've already had, you know, Gutierrez and Iwakuma, but at least maybe we're getting them out of the way. That's the hope. So that's where I'm at with the Mariners monologues. More to come later. I think the season starts early April or March 31st or whatever it is. So that should be pretty interesting for a while. Should be something fun to follow. I'm going to be busy with school for the rest of the year. So but I'll be following it. Should be pretty good. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this, and I will see you guys at some point later.